to welcome everyone. I want to welcome everyone who's joining us online, everyone in Missouri City. I want to say hello to some friends who are actually joining us in Dubai to do this together. How about that? Isn't that fun to have, people around the world? So that's a great thing. And it's just hard to believe that this is our final week in our journey with Joshua, and I'm in your notes now, but I have to tell you that this is one of those books that has a really awesome ending. It has a great ending on so many levels, and what incredible stories those piles of stones could tell of how God showed up over and over again during their conquest of the land. But I want us to go back. I want us to go back and remember what God said to Joshua that very first week we were together in the first chapter of Joshua. It's Joshua 1, verses 1 to 9, because it's all going to come together from here. So let me read Joshua 1, 1 to 9. It says this: "Be strong and courageous, for you shall give this people possession of the land which I swore to their fathers to give them. Only be strong and very courageous. Be careful." It's interesting to hear this ahead of time, isn't it? "Be careful to do according to all the law which Moses my servant commanded you. Don't turn from it to the right or the left, so you'll have success wherever you go. This book of the law shall not depart from your mouth, but you shall meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do according to all that's written in it. For then you'll make your way," what? "Prosperous, and then you'll have success. Have I not commanded you?" He said this just a few times. Remember we talked about this? "Be strong and courageous. Do not tremble or be dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go." And he truly was, even when they lost their way. I mean, he was with them in the crossing of the Jordan, to the battles of Jericho and Ai, to the powerful reading in the valley of Shechem, where this whole thing started with a promise to Abraham almost 500 years before. And now it makes sense that when the coming generations would see those memorial stones piled in Gilgal and in the Jordan, or read the words carved on the stones on Mount Ebal and ask, what are these stones for? They really would tell the story of courage and faith and God's presence through it all. What a legacy is being left. Now, after that second battle at Ai, which we saw last week, Joshua and the Israelites go on to conquer most of the rest of the promised land. And we read in Joshua 12 this fun checklist of how it all went down. So let me pick it up in Joshua 12:7. It says this: "Now these are the kings of the land whom Joshua and the sons of Israel defeated beyond the Jordan toward the rest, from Baal-Gad in the valley of Lebanon, even as far as Mount Halak, which rises above Seir. And Joshua gave it to the tribes of Israel as a possession according to their divisions." And then it lists the victories. And after each victory, it says the word won, not W-O-N, but O-N-E, kind of like we would say check. So the list went like this. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but here we go. Verse 9. "The king of Jericho won. The king of Ai, which is beside Bethel, won. The king of Jerusalem won. The king of Hebron won. The king of Jarmuth, check. The king of Lachish, check. The king of Eglon, check." And it goes on and on and on. And then it goes down to verse 24. After listing all these kings, it says, "The king of Tirzah, check." In all, how many? 31 ever-loving kings. So when it was all over, the score read, Joshua and the Israelites, 31. The Canaanites, what? A big fat 0. And it makes me think about how it could be at the end of our lives, to read back over our own checklists. Something like this, fought against fear, but now walking in faith. Check. Was pulled toward gossip, but chose to remain silent. Check. Fought with addiction, but got help and am sober. Check. Struggled with jealousy, but embraced contentment. Check. Wrestled with anxiety and worry, but now I'm embracing peace. Check. Struggled with forgiving her, but I let it go. Check. And the book of Joshua has shown us that none of these things are impossible with God who fights with and for us. Now, just like Joshua, there are always going to be stories behind the glory, right? And we saw that. And this is called the process. It's the getting from here to there that we talked about the first week. This is the marching. And it's why we aren't made to go into the battle alone. We've already seen how much we need each other so that we don't stop on lap 6. So we can make that turn. And in Hebrews 12:1, after we read this impressive list of people who were champions of the faith, it says this. Love this verse. Hebrews 12:1 and 2. "Therefore, since we're surrounded by such a huge crowd of witnesses to the life of faith, let us strip off every weight that slows us down, especially the sin that so easily trips us up." So true. "And let us run with endurance the race God has set before us. We do this by keeping our eyes where? on Jesus, the champion who initiates and perfects our faith. Now, when Kent and I are in Colorado in the summers, we like to participate in this fun run. It's called the Boogies Fun Run. It benefits a bunch of local charities. And I've been doing this race really for over 15 years. But it was a little easier for me when I lived in Colorado, because now Kent and I come in, we're basically flatlanders coming into the altitude. And about halfway through this race, you get to this point, and it's called Heart Attack Hill. Yeah, so that works well for us. And the funny thing about Heart Attack Hill is it's on Cemetery Lane. Yeah, that's awesome. So once you get to Heart Attack Hill, you kind of turn to go there, and then as you start up, that's when we start talking to each other going, you want to quit? You want to just take a break? Maybe we'll just step out. No one will ever know. But what keeps us going is that what we know is we have a lot of friends that live right there on Cemetery Lane, and they're out in their driveways cheering people on. They're on their decks and their balconies. They're the great cloud of witnesses just up the hill, right around the turn. They keep us going. And we can look back and see a few friends who are behind us, not so many, but a lot of them who are ahead, and they're going, come on, you can do it. And every time at the end, we look at each other and go, oh, I'm so glad we didn't give up. I'm so glad we stayed in there to the end. And I know how sometimes when we're in the middle of the race and we're just sucking wind like that, all we can think of, is it over yet? When are we going to get there? Are we there yet? But I want us to rethink that position, because what if when you're in the middle, it's bigger than that? What if when you're in the middle, you're actually in the middle of a move of God? And how you live in the middle is what will enable you to later go back and add that victory to that life list. So your defeated king list might read, the king of shame, check. The king of criticism, check. The king of impatience, check. Remember, Brene Brown calls this what? Rising strong. Now, let me stop and show you how this worked with Rahab. I couldn't wait to tell you about this. So here she was. Remember, she's a prostitute from among one of the most evil cultures in the world. She made this bold and risky decision to hide the spies and declare her faith in the God of Israel. Now, in Hebrews 11, right before the verse we just read in chapter 12 about running the race, there's this section. It's called the Hall of Faith. And in it, people like Abraham and Sarah and Moses and David, they're singled out as champions of the faith. And the list includes people that we would probably put on there ourselves if we were asked to make that list. For example, it says, by faith Noah built a very large boat. How by faith Abraham obeyed God. How by faith Sarah believed she could conceive when she was very old. And how by faith Moses led the people out of Egypt. And there's many others. But when you get down this list of the Hall of Faith and you get to verse 30, you read this. Hebrews 11:30. By faith, the walls of Jericho fell down after they'd been encircled for 7 days. By faith, Rahab the harlot did not perish along with those who were disobedient after she welcomed the spies in peace. This is in the New Testament, you guys. Of all the people who God could have chosen to highlight and include in his Hall of Faith, he picked Rahab to stand alongside Abraham and Moses. And this is amazing on so many levels. And I realize we haven't really talked about this too much, but the book of Joshua can be disturbing because of all the killing that goes on. It's a tough and it's a bloody book in that regard. In fact, it's the only book where we see God authorize such aggressive military action throughout the whole thing. But God knew the Canaanite people. Their evil had been going on for over 600 years, and it got worse over time. In fact, in the book of Deuteronomy, it says this in 12:31. They even burned their sons and daughters in the fire as sacrifices to their gods. One scholar called the Canaanite culture a snake pit of child sacrifice and sacred prostitution that was ruthlessly devoted to using the most innocent and vulnerable members of the community, read babies and virgins, to try and manipulate their gods for their own gain. But can you even imagine carrying your baby girl for 9 months in your belly and delivering this precious little one and then taking her and throwing her in the fire or turning her over as a temple prostitute? It's awful. And God knew not only what they'd done in the past, but what they would continue doing going forward. And this is so hard because for us, on the one hand, we struggle when we see injustice and we feel like God isn't doing something about something that's terribly wrong. But we also struggle when he does do something about it. It's complex. But at the end of the day, we just have to go back to the things we stand on about God's character, that he's perfectly just and fair, and at the same time, he's full of grace and mercy, and just trust his heart. And they had 600 years to stop this. Think about this. The fact that Rahab did break free and choose to worship God is proof they could have as well. And the fact that God accepted Rahab and then included her as a Canaanite prostitute in the Hall of Faith is proof that he would have fully accepted them too. But it gets even better. So after the conquest, Rahab settled, among the Jews, and she became a part of the Hebrew faith and culture. And the Bible tells us, now stay with me in this, that she married a man named Salmon. All right? Now, Rahab and Salmon had a son named Boaz. Some lights are coming on, right? And some of you may remember this was the man who Ruth married. And in the book of Matthew, we read the rest of her genealogy going forward. And I'm going to pick it up right here with Salmon. Matthew 1, verses 5 to 6, all right? Salmon was the father of Boaz by Rahab. Boaz was the father of Obed by Ruth. Obed the father of Jesse. Jesse was the father of who? Pretty good lineage so far. And if you keep reading and you follow all the names in the genealogy down to verse 16, I want you to go back and do this. You read this, Matthew 1:16. And Jacob was the father of Joseph, the husband of Mary, by whom Jesus was born, who is called the Messiah. I mean, how incredible is this? Rahab, the Canaanite prostitute from Jericho, is included in the lineage of Jesus. God is not a respecter of persons like we are. We look, we measure up, we judge if someone's in or not. He is so not like us. And can you see the other incredible picture here? We're back to the red cord of hope. Little did she know when she hung that red cord in the window that her faith was going to be part of the fulfillment of that very picture, because now she's grafted as a non-Jewish Canaanite into the lineage of Christ, where red blood would be shed and bring hope to a lost world. Absolutely amazing. Again, our past story does not have to determine our future. So now we finished with Rahab. Let's finish with Joshua. At the end of the book, it says Joshua was pretty stinking old, 110 and fading, and he deserved to fade by then. But just like we would have, he's had some important things to say before he died. So I want to read some of the things he said right before he died. Joshua 23, verse 2. Joshua called for all Israel, for their elders and their heads and their judges and their officers, and said to them, I'm old, advanced in years, and you've seen how the Lord has done what the Lord has done to all these nations because of you. For the Lord your God is he who's been fighting for you. Underline that. See, I've apportioned to you these nations which remain as an inheritance for your tribes, with all the nations which I've cut off, from the Jordan even to the great sea toward the setting of the sun. The Lord your God, he will thrust them out from before you and drive them from before you, and you will possess their land just as the Lord your God promised you. Be what? Be very firm then to keep and do all that's written in the book of the law of Moses, so that you don't turn, this is reminiscent, right, of chapter 1, aside from it to the right hand or to the left, so that you will not associate with these nations, these which remain among you, or mention the name of their gods, or make anyone swear by them, or serve them, or bow down to them. But, underline this, but you are to cling, that's such an important word, to the Lord your God, as you've done to this day. For the Lord has driven out great and strong nations from before you, and as for you, no man has stood before you to this day. 31 kings, right? I want you to underline this too. One of your men puts to flight 1,000. For the Lord your God is he who fights for you, just as he promised you. So take diligent heed to yourselves to love the Lord your God. So 2 things I want to point out here. The first is in verse 7, where Joshua tells the people to what? Cling to the Lord. What do you think of when you hear the word cling? Just think about that for just a minute. I didn't grow up in a hugging family in my younger years. I don't have one memory of my birth mother ever hugging me at all. Now, that changed a little bit in high school when I moved in with my dad. But by then, I'd pretty much decided that hugging was just a little too vulnerable for me. I'd had to live so much of my life with control to protect myself that just felt unsafe. Now, I want to show you a picture of my friend Bria. I went and spoke at a regional women's conference at her church in Las Vegas about a year ago. Now, Bria is the total opposite of how she was raised. Check this out. When Bria hugs you tightly, it's so awkward. I can't tell you. It's like you almost can't breathe. Look at my face. See how I kind of have like, oh my gosh, what's You know, when you get a hug from Bria, it's like you've received your ration of hugs for the entire month from her. You know, it's kind of like she hugs you until you let go of whatever it is that's keeping you from hugging back. I mean, she's not going to give it up. But I've learned to become a better hugger over the years, and I've learned how important that is. In fact, sometimes when I'm talking to Tira or my grandson Adam, before I hang up, I'll say, okay, well, I'm going to go now, but I want you to take your arms and I want you to wrap them really tight around yourself and give yourself a great big hug for me. This is Adam doing that. This is yesterday. It looks like he's going to squeeze his brains out in there. So, okay, let's try it. Everybody ready? You can do this. This is not so threatening, yeah? It's good, it's good. We can do this. So in Joshua's final words, you guys, of all he could say, think of all the things he could say at the end of his life. What's he do? What's he say? He says, cling to God, hold on to him. When they're vulnerable, to make themselves vulnerable to him. And God wants us to cling to him like there's no tomorrow. And I realize it is a vulnerable position, but it's the very place where you'll find rest. And in the beginning, it might be a little bit scary, but when you finally just let go, you know when you're holding on to someone and at first you're tight and you're tense and it's like this, and part of you's going, pull away, get out. And then you finally just go, you know, that's where you find the peace and rest. You know, when you're in his arms, you can breathe deeply in safety and peace. And I want that for you, and I want that for me. The second thing I want you to see is why or how you can do that. So look at Joshua 23, still at the end of his life, given his last words, verses 9 to 11. It says, for the Lord has driven out great and strong nations from before you, and as for you, no man has stood before you to this day. One of your men puts to flight how many? For the Lord your God is he who fights for you, just as he promised you. So take diligent heed to yourselves to love the Lord your God. So you can cling to the Lord because he's your champion who goes before you. And the picture that Joshua paints here is, I think it's almost like a comic strip. It's of a single Hebrew soldier with his sword up and 1,000 dudes just running, like going, whoa, look at here he comes all by himself. But they're scared to death. This is how we rise up and fight in the middle. You know, our enemy outnumbered 1,000 to 1. And I brought Kent's sword back as a visual reminder of what that would look like. So it's so heavy I can't really do it, but it's little old me, you know, chasing down anger. 1,000 to 1, chasing down bitterness or fear or whatever or whoever has gone before me. And I have to remember when I'm doing that I have that whole host of heaven up there that I can't see fighting with and for me as well. So we have this beautiful mingling of what? Clinging and fighting. It's great, of being soft and strong. And that's the kind of woman I want to be. Soft and strong. A woman who can cling and fall in God's arms in safety and peace. And at the same time, I can pick up my sword 1,000 to 1. And here's what's so awesome. You know, at this point, they've fought and defeated 31 kings. Look at the map. Look at this red line. That's where they've gone. All those places. Now, if you look at that map, of all the places Joshua could have chosen to say his last words, where do you think it would be on the map? It's back in the valley of Shechem, where it all started. Doesn't that make sense? And in chapter 24, we're going to read something that I bet you've seen on refrigerator magnets or on posters or little plaques in people's houses. But this time, I want you to read it thinking about this whole story, and I hope it has an even more profound impact. Here we go, Joshua 24, verses 14 and 15. Now fear the Lord and serve him with all faithfulness. Throw away the gods your ancestors worshipped beyond the Euphrates River and in Egypt, and serve the Lord. But if serving the Lord seems undesirable to you, then choose for yourselves this day whom you'll serve, whether the gods your ancestors served beyond the Euphrates or the gods of the Amorites in whose land you're living. But as for me and my household, we will serve the Lord. Now then, said Joshua, throw away the foreign gods that are among you and yield your hearts to the Lord, the God of Israel. And the people said to Joshua, we will serve the Lord our God and obey him. And on that day, Joshua made a covenant for the people. And there where? at Shechem, I love this. He reaffirmed for them decrees and laws. And Joshua recorded, of course he did, these things in the book of the law of God. And then, of course he did, he took a large stone and set it up there under the oak near the holy place of the Lord. See, he said to all the people, this stone will be a witness against us. It's heard all the words the Lord has said to us. It'll be a witness against you if you're untrue to your God. And then Joshua dismissed the people, each to their own inheritance. So whether you're single or married or with or without children, this is a choice that we make minute by minute, day by day, because wherever we're living at any given moment is, in fact, it's our house and it's our people. So think about it. Your body is your house. The Bible calls it a temple. Your mind is your house, every nook and cranny of it. Where you work, whether it's in an office or at home or both, that's your house. Where you play is your house. And not only do we live in these places, each of us chooses every day, every minute who will serve there as well. And I realize none of us lives in perfect homes. We're not going to until heaven. But here in the middle, in whatever homes we reside in right now, we all have choices. And I'm so thankful that right here in this room, like in the Valley of Shechem, we can freely just declare this together. So I want to do it. I'm going to say, choose this day whom you will serve. And I want you to answer if you agree with that. As for me and my house, we'll serve the Lord. Shall we try it? Okay. Choose today whom you will serve. Choose today whom you will serve. I love this, you guys. And as we enter into the holidays coming up, I want you to keep that picture in your mind's eye no matter what comes up over the holidays. I know this, things come up. I want you to see yourself two ways. I want you to see yourself clinging to the Lord. Do it, y'all, do it. And then I want you to see you with your sword, 1 to 1,000, whatever comes up, there you are against it. And then we'll get back together in January, and we're going to be able to tell some awesome stories. And maybe you'll even pick up some rocks along the way through the holidays. And what I want you to know is that I really do love you dearly. Y'all are so amazing. You bless me in incredible ways. And I hope you have a fabulous Thanksgiving and a merry, 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 wonderful Christmas. And I hope on Thanksgiving Day that sometime during the day you'll do this and you know that you're getting a great big hug from me. That's way safe for me, right? So I love y'all so much. So I want to take a break, let you go into your discussion. We're going to have a shorter discussion today so y'all can go out in the lobby, and I have a few things to close with. So y'all take a break and have your discussion.